Hello, this is Will Faerber from Art to Ride, and today we're going to update you on Bailador's progress with the Piaffe. So I'm showing you after I warmed him up how nice this Piaffe is developing, and I'm going to show you how I warmed him up to get to this place. So notice how light my reins are there. All I'm doing is just ever lightly tapping him. This is a very explosive horse, but he's learning to contain that explosion, which is what the Piaffe kind of does for them. So watch in the very end here how he starts to settle down. At first he overreacts a little bit, and then here he starts to really start to pay off nicely. Look at the compression in the hocks and how the whole body of the horse relaxes. So watch, see how at the end of that I'm able to just stop, pat him on the neck, and he's completely relaxed. So let's take a look at how I warmed him up to begin this work today. Now Bailador, I'm working up in the side reins. So we're starting here with long side reins. Now notice how when I'm going to bring a horse up in the side reins and stabilize him in a little higher frame, we don't want to keep the side reins on the side of the horse. If we do that, I think you can clearly see as you shorten the side reins, if they're attached to the side, they clearly just start pulling the horse over, and this is how so many horses end up overbent in the trot. So we've spent a long time, a few years now, straightening this horse's neck out. So everything that I'm doing is to keep him in this frame. Now I've tried this before, and when I did, he just curled over, which told me that his neck had not healed enough to be able to do this work yet. So now you can see, however, with the side reins coming from the angle they would from your hands, which is why we want to do this. But you notice how these side reins don't stop the horse from throwing his head up in the air. He can throw his head up in the air as high as he wants to. It's not going to stop him. It's not going to try to hold him down nor keep his back from coming through. So he has a little canter here, and even here we see how the neck is staying out straight. We spent a few months with this horse when he returned to us this winter, just doing nothing but working him in the shambone. We got his neck back out and healed out a little bit. But look how much action there is in the hocks and how he's really floating over his back. So what we're going to try to do today is bringing him up into a higher level frame if he can sustain it. So I'm starting here with these side reins as long as they possibly would go, about the length they would be if my hands, if we were simply riding the horse and letting him stretch down. So notice that the side reins are coming from the same angle that they would if you were riding the horse, and how that does not break the horse over. You can see here how he looks like a big ball rolling over the ground. Look how much flexion is in his hocks. This is the horse that had very little flexion in his hocks when we first started him. But look how beautifully even. Once again, when we say a horse is rhythmic, it's rhythmic when the front end and the back end match up. That is, they swing on the same plane, which you can clearly see him doing here. And we can even see him beginning to develop a little thrust as his hind legs come deeper under the body. So I'm just waiting here for him to stabilize in this position, which he does quite nicely here. And once again, look at the difference in the neck, how there's no break. We used to be able to see a clear deformity in this horse's neck at about the third or fourth vertebrae where he had been severely overbent in the neck. So remember, when you're starting with horses like that, it always takes a few years to correct that problem, a year at least. And this horse was a pretty severe case. So look how nicely he's staying rhythmic, how nice and floppy his ears are there. He's not overreacting to anything that I'm doing, and just stretching and relaxing into that frame. So that's just how I want him to warm up. So now I'm going to do the same thing in the opposite direction. So I'm doing the same length of side reins here, going to the right. And once again, we see how beautifully he's beginning to bend. Always remembering that a horse cannot bend if it's not over its back. So everything in the beginning of work has to be aimed at getting the horse over his back. Once we get that, then the bend comes all by itself. We don't have to fight a horse into bend or anything else when the horse has been prepared properly to do the work. A really lovely big swing in this. Now I would like him to slow down a little bit more here than he's doing, but I don't like to sort of impede his natural idea to kind of want to move a little more quickly than I might like him to, but that's really settled down. He used to just run all the time. So now I let him kind of slowly tire himself out there a little bit and just start to slow down, start to relax within the frame that he's working in. In other words, I want it to be his idea a little bit rather than something I'm forcing him to do. Really nice swing and stretch. Once again, look at the neck muscles, how the underside of the neck is completely relaxed. You can see the top line clearly lighting up. Once again, look how much action there is in the horse's hocks here and how much the horse is in rhythm. That is, we can see the two ends swinging exactly the same. So I'm just letting him settle here, waiting for him to slow down a little bit. And now I'm going to begin to bring the side reins up a little bit. So I'm going to shorten them about 5 holes on either side. And then go back to doing the exact same thing, being sure that that change in the length of rein doesn't alter the stride. So that's our rule. So if I were to put these back on and I couldn't get him in that big swinging trot, or he became hollow, then I would know that they were too short. Look how nicely he comes out in the walk and starts to stretch that neck forward. This was a horse also that when we began with him had a very lateral walk, and he now has a nice 4-beat walk. And he took off there in the canter a little bit before I wanted him to. No big deal. I just asked him to come right back down, which he does quite nicely. And gets a good stretch into the contact. That's all I'm looking for. Really nice once again. See how there is no break in the horse's neck at this point. He's still being able to keep his face in front of the vertical, like that, and yet still keep the same depth of stride. So that's exactly what I'm looking for. Now I'm going to go back the other way. Now once again, just taking those side reins a little bit shorter. So I'll do each direction before I shorten them again. So in other words, each direction with the new length of side reins before I then shorten them again. Really good. Once again, a little quicker than I would like sometimes. But I want to just wait for him to relax into it. I don't want him to be trying to hold a horse like this back. So nicely he went into the canter transition this time, staying over his back in the canter, and look how nice and long the neck is in the canter. That's what we're looking for. This horse's problem in the canter was always that as soon as you started him in canter, he would pull his neck way back up and then hollow his back, and 2 days later we'd have a sore back. So for him to be able to canter out like that and keep the neck long is just what we're looking for. Now nicely he comes back into that nice swinging trot. Everything is still going well here. He's still well in front of the vertical with his face, so to speak. He's not over bending, and so now we're going to try to shortening the length a little bit more. So now I'll take him up about another 5 holes, which will be about a total of about a foot in total from the longest possible. And look how nicely he's able to bring the pole up. I still have the same trot. Once again, taking the little shorter rein has not affected the trot any. So that was really good. Now I'll go back the other way. Same thing. Now look how when he starts off in the walk, he has a tendency to go a little hollow, but now as soon as I can get behind him, I can send him forward and he stretches back down into the contact. Once again, lunging is correct when it's just like riding. I'm doing exactly the same things. I'm sending the horse forward from my leg, which is the whip, into the contact with the reins, which is my hand, and of course the side reins in this case. So I'm establishing the exact same things that I want to happen when I get on the horse. So here we still have him pushing nicely up through his back. Once again, watch how the hocks, once the horse starts working over its back, you can see how the thrust begins to lighten the forehand. That is the push off of the hind legs. That push comes up into the back. And that can only work correctly if the horse's back is round. Otherwise, it doesn't complete itself. The stride never completes itself, and therefore you never have real impulsion. Remember that real impulsion is the horse's desire to move forward. And of course, if the horse's body isn't working in the best possible way, there's going to be a lot of hindrance to that forward motion. Really nice here again in the canter. Notice how the neck stays out long. His whole body stays long. He doesn't shorten himself back into the canter and hollow his back. So that's exactly what I'm looking for there. So very gradually over the next weeks, I will be taking these reins shorter and shorter, just bringing up that little bit more, and then working with him in the Piaffe to teach him to begin to bend the hocks a little more. That also helps to bring his back up and round as he really learns to push up through his back. And of course, the level of submission necessary to the Piaffe work is very, very great. For this horse to be able to do the Piaffe work is a big step in the right direction, as I've tried this many, many times before. But for him to contain himself and be able to turn his usual explosive energy into a movement is just what we're looking for, and the way you get these kind of excitable horses under control ultimately. But see how nicely he comes back to the walk here. And of course, I always spend a few moments just coming back to the walk, letting that walk swing. See how he starts to bring the head up. You can almost see the muscles inverting. And watch as he comes back into the stretch, how you see the top line light back up, the muscles on the top part of the neck. And once again, how nice that is that he's not breaking in the neck any longer. Look how much flatter it is behind the saddle. If you remember when we started this horse, he was nearly sway-backed, really. And had a lot of damage that had been done by an ill-fitting saddle and bad training. So I think we're on the other side of most of those things. And now with the work in the Piaffe, I think we'll really be able to complete this horse's training. Look how lovely he starts to step into that. And there's a couple of moments here, if I tap him a little harder, he wants to explode, but he doesn't. And as I go on here, he begins to get more and more relaxed as the rhythm becomes more apparent. And you see how all the fussing stops here as he starts to get into it there, and now he begins to step the way we want him to right there and relaxes. And I'm able to stop. Notice how the head and neck stopped moving. That's exactly what I wanted to do. So that was really excellent for him. This is Will Faerber from Art to Ride, developing Bailador.